Imagine this. You wake up, make some coffee, and stroll to the bakery down the street for a fresh croissant. Kids? No problem. Their school is a 10-minute walk away. Need groceries? The local market is just around the corner. Doctor's appointment? A quick bike ride and you're there. This, my friends, is the idea behind the 15-minute city. It's about designing cities where everything you need, work, school, shops, parks, is within a 15-minute walk or bike ride from your home. Sounds pretty good, right? No more soul-crushing commutes, just more time for things you actually enjoy. You could ditch the car, get some exercise, and actually get to know your neighbors. It's a vision of urban living that's both appealing and increasingly relevant. But like a perfectly arranged charcuterie board, it's important to look closer before taking a big bite. So, are 15-minute cities the utopia they promise to be? Or are there hidden costs to this seemingly perfect arrangement? Buckle up, because we're about to dive into the wonderful, wacky, and sometimes worrying world of 15-minute cities. Let's go! The 15-minute city isn't just some new-age urban planning fad. It's rooted in the very real desire for more livable, sustainable, and people-centric cities. The idea is to create self-sufficient neighborhoods where residents have easy access to everything they need. Think of it like a city within a city. This means rethinking how we design our urban spaces. Instead of sprawling suburbs and congested city centers, the 15-minute city promotes mixed-use development. This means having homes, businesses, schools, and green spaces all coexisting within the same area. The goal? To reduce car dependency, promote walking and cycling, and create a greater sense of community. Sounds great in theory, but how do you actually make it work? Well, it requires a shift in thinking from car-centric urban planning to a more people-focused approach. The idea of 15-minute cities has been bubbling up for a while now. Think back to Jane Jacobs and her fight for vibrant, mixed-use neighborhoods, or the new urbanism movement of the 1980s. These were early whispers of what would become a global phenomenon. Fast forward to today, and the 15-minute city concept is gaining serious traction. Cities around the world, from Paris to Portland, are embracing this model, redesigning their streets and neighborhoods to prioritize pedestrians, cyclists, and local businesses. But hold on a minute. Not everyone is jumping for joy at the thought of 15-minute cities. Some critics see it as a recipe for gentrification, increased surveillance, and restrictions on personal freedom. Let's travel across the pond to the hallowed halls of academia. Here, we meet Professor Carlos Moreno. He's a rock star in urban planning, the brains behind the 15-minute city concept, a professor at Sorbonne University in Paris. His work studies how people use time in urban environments. People were spending more time stuck in traffic. Moreno's solution? Design cities that work for people. That's the essence of the 15-minute city. Now, some might say Moreno's ideas are radical, but here's the thing, they're not entirely new. In fact, the 15-minute city concept has roots in some surprisingly old-school urban planning ideas. Think back to the days before cars ruled the roads, when cities were designed for walking and human interaction. Remember those charming European towns with their narrow streets and bustling marketplaces? Yeah, those were basically proto-15-minute cities. Take Venice, for example. No cars allowed. Everything is accessible by foot or by boat. Or how about those ancient Roman cities with their grid-like layouts and neighborhood centers? They were designed for efficient living with everything within easy reach. So in a way, the 15-minute city is a return to a more human-scale approach to urban design. It's about reclaiming the streets for people, not just vehicles. It's about creating communities where you can bump into your neighbor at the bakery, walk your kids to school, and actually enjoy your city without needing a car. Revolutionary? Maybe. Nostalgic? Definitely. Now back to Professor Moreno and his Parisian adventures. You see, the City of Lights has a soft spot for this whole 15-minute city thing. In fact, Paris has become a bit of a poster child for the movement. And it all started with a certain someone named Anne Hidalgo. Hidalgo, the mayor of Paris since 2014, is a big fan of Moreno's work. She's made it her mission to transform Paris into a more livable, breathable, and dare we say 15-minute city-like metropolis. How, you ask? Well, she's been busy implementing some pretty bold policies. We're talking pedestrianizing streets, creating bike lanes like nobody's business, and even restricting car access in certain areas. It's all part of her grand plan to make Paris a city where you don't need a car to thrive. And you know what? It seems to be working. Paris is consistently ranked as one of the most livable cities in the world. Coincidence? We think not. Let's talk about the traffic jam clogging our lives. Commuting. It's the bane of modern existence. We spend hours stuck in traffic, losing our minds. But in a 15-minute city, commuting becomes a thing of the past. Imagine no more frantic dashes to catch the train. This newfound freedom translates into more time for the good stuff. And let's be honest, who wouldn't want an extra hour or two in their day? Time, after all, is the most precious commodity. Let's face it, cities aren't exactly known for their pristine air quality. In fact, breathing in city air can sometimes feel like inhaling a toxic cocktail of exhaust fumes, industrial pollutants, and who knows what else. It's enough to make you want to invest in a hazmat suit. But 15-minute cities offer a breath of fresh air, literally. By reducing car dependency, these urban oases promote walking and cycling, which are not only good for your health, but also for the environment. Less traffic means fewer emissions, which translates into cleaner air for everyone. Imagine a city where you can actually take a deep breath without choking on smog. A city where kids can play outside without worrying about inhaling toxic fumes. A city where the air itself feels invigorating rather than suffocating. That's the promise of a 15-minute city, and it's a promise worth fighting for. Remember the good old days when you knew your local butcher, baker, and candlestick maker by name? When shopping was a social activity, not just a frantic dash to the megamart? 15-minute cities bring back that sense of community and local flavor. With everything within walking or cycling distance, residents are more likely to support local businesses. This means stronger local economies, more unique shops and restaurants, and a greater sense of community pride. Instead of sterile shopping malls and chain stores, imagine a city filled with quirky boutiques, family-run restaurants, and artisan workshops. A city where you can find one-of-a-kind treasures and support local craftspeople. That's the beauty of a 15-minute city. It's about fostering a sense of place and celebrating the unique character of each neighborhood. In today's hyper-connected world, it's ironic that we often feel more disconnected than ever. We're glued to our phones, isolated in our cars, and surrounded by strangers. But 15-minute cities offer an antidote to this modern malaise. By creating walkable, bikeable neighborhoods, these urban villages foster a sense of community and social connection. When you bump into your neighbor at the local coffee shop or chat with the owner of your favorite bookstore, it creates a sense of belonging and shared identity. Imagine a city where you know the people on your street, where kids play together in the park, and where neighbors help each other out. A city where community events are the norm, not the exception. This sense of community is not just a feel-good factor, it's essential for our well-being. And it's a key ingredient in creating a truly livable and sustainable city. Okay, let's address the elephant in the room, or rather the luxury penthouse overlooking the park in our perfectly planned 15-minute city. Because here's the thing about utopias. They often come with a hefty price tag. And for many critics, the 15-minute city is less about creating a paradise for all and more about catering to the privileged few. Gentrification, that buzzword that sends shivers down the spines of urban dwellers everywhere, is a major concern. As neighborhoods become more desirable with their walkable streets and charming local businesses, property values tend to skyrocket. Suddenly, that cozy little apartment above the bakery is going for a king's ransom. The result? Longtime residents, often from lower-income backgrounds, are priced out of their own neighborhoods. They're forced to move further away from the city center, further from those amenities that made their neighborhood so attractive in the first place. It's a classic case of urban renewal that ends up benefiting the wealthy at the expense of the vulnerable. Now, proponents of the 15-minute city argue that it's not about exclusivity, but rather about creating more equitable access for everyone. They envision a city where even the poorest neighborhoods have access to quality public spaces, affordable housing, and essential services within a 15-minute radius. Sounds great, right? But critics argue that this vision often clashes with the reality of how cities actually work. Take, for example, the issue of affordable housing. Building new affordable units in highly desirable, amenity-rich neighborhoods is a challenge, to say the least. Developers, driven by profit, are often more interested in building luxury condos than affordable apartments. And even when affordable housing is built, it's often snapped up quickly, leaving many still struggling to find a place to live. The result is a city increasingly divided along economic lines. You have the 15-minute neighborhoods where residents enjoy a high quality of life, and then you have the neighborhoods that are left behind, lacking basic services and struggling with poverty and crime. It's a tale of two cities existing side by side but worlds apart. One of the main selling points of the 15-minute city is reducing car dependency. We love the freedom cars provide but hate the traffic and environmental impact. But what if this freedom was curtailed for more livable cities? Critics worry it could lead to restrictions on movement. Advocates argue the goal is to create viable alternatives to car travel. Here's another concern that often gets raised in discussions about 15-minute cities surveillance. With the rise of smart technology and data collection, there's a growing unease about how our movements are being tracked and monitored. And some worry that the 15-minute city, with its emphasis on technology and data-driven urban planning, could exacerbate these concerns. Imagine a city where sensors track your every move, from your morning commute to your grocery shopping habits, where facial recognition cameras are ubiquitous, and your data is used to optimize everything from traffic flow to waste management. Sounds efficient, sure, but it also sounds a bit like Big Brother is watching your every move. Proponents of smart cities argue that data collection can be used for good, to improve services, reduce crime, and enhance the overall quality of life. And they stress that privacy concerns can be addressed through robust data protection laws and ethical guidelines. But for some, the idea of a city constantly monitoring their every move is a step too far down a slippery slope towards a surveillance state. Section 5. Retrofit or revolt. Let's face it, most cities weren't designed with the 15-minute concept in mind. They're sprawling, often chaotic, and heavily reliant on cars. So how do you go about retrofitting these existing urban landscapes to fit the 15-minute mold? That's a question that's got urban planners scratching their heads. Creating walkable neighborhoods from scratch is one thing, but what about those areas that are dominated by highways, industrial zones, or sprawling suburban developments? Transforming these spaces into vibrant, mixed-use communities is a monumental task, requiring massive investments, political will, and the cooperation of countless stakeholders. Some critics argue that it's simply not feasible to retrofit every city to fit the 15-minute ideal. They say that the costs would be astronomical, the disruption immense, and the results uncertain. They believe that focusing on improving public transportation, promoting affordable housing, and creating more green spaces within existing urban fabrics is a more realistic and effective approach. The verdict on the city of the future? So there you have it. The 15-minute city-urban utopia, or recipe for disaster? It's complicated. We've seen the good, the bad, and the debatable. Living in a walkable, bikeable neighborhood is appealing. Who wouldn't want cleaner air and to know their neighbors? But concerns about gentrification and surveillance are real. The 15-minute city could exacerbate inequalities. It's a tale as old as cities themselves. Section 2. A balancing act. So where do we go from here? Do we scrap the 15-minute city concept altogether, or do we try to find a way to make it work for everyone? Well, as with most things in life, it's all about finding the right balance. We need to embrace the good ideas while acknowledging and addressing the potential pitfalls. Instead of viewing the 15-minute city as a one-size-fits-all solution, we should think of it as a set of principles that can be adapted to different contexts. It's about creating more human-scale, community-oriented urban environments, but it's also about ensuring that these environments are accessible and affordable to people from all walks of life. This means prioritizing affordable housing, investing in public transportation, and promoting mixed-income development. It means involving communities in the planning process, listening to their concerns, and ensuring that their voices are heard. It's about creating cities that work for everyone, not just the privileged few. Section 3. The road ahead. The 15-minute city concept has sparked an important conversation about urban living. Cities are living ecosystems designed to enhance well-being. We need to approach urban planning with a critical yet optimistic eye. Challenge the status quo, embrace innovation, and experiment with new ideas. The road to a sustainable urban future will be long and winding. With careful planning and community engagement, we can create just and equitable cities.